MacConnell writes, "Hey Collider crew, love the show. My question is about writers. For people who have an interest in movies, it always seems to be the directors who get the majority of the credit for the making of the film. Do the writers deserve to get more recognition than they do? While the director obviously has an important job at bringing the whole film together, shouldn't the person who wrote the story also deserve credit too?"
Well, I mean, we are living in an age right now where writers are getting more attention. I mean, like, Aaron Sorkin is a household name. So, I mean, do they deserve more credit? Yes. I will say this, though, and I think, Shep, you'd back this up. Filmmaking really is a really big collaborative effort because, you know, from the writer to the director to the cinematographer to the editor to, like, there's a lot of credit that needs to be spread around. And do writers deserve more credit than they get? Absolutely they do. I will still, though, say this, that the bottom line guy, the person who is most responsible is the man or woman sitting in that director's chair. Let me give you a little bit of an example and tell me what you think about this. As a fun experiment, I both wrote and directed and produced my own film. Now, let's look at these two separate people. There was John the screenwriter, there was John the director. I'm pretty proud of the screenplay. I thought the screenplay was pretty good. It was okay. So, and then I also directed it, and I came up with my movie. That being said, if we had somebody who was like a 15% better writer than me write the script, but I still directed it, the movie would have been a little bit better. But I also believe if I had written the script, but had somebody who was a 15 to 20% better director than me, I think the difference in quality would have been much more significant in how much better the movie would have been if we had a better director than myself than if we'd had a better writer than myself. I just think because you take my exact script but get a better director than me, that movie turns out a lot better. If you get a better writer than me but the same director, I think the movie turns out better, but marginally so. So do I believe writers deserve way more credit than they get? Yes, more than just Aaron Sorkin should be a household name. There should be a lot of guys and women out there who are household names that are great writers. But I still believe that most of the responsibility for how good or bad a movie turns out still rests with that person in the director's chair. Schnepp is both a writer and a director, played a lot of, and an editor and all that kind of stuff. How do you see this?
I agree. I mean, but it's funny because television and movies are two different beasts.
Oh, very different
so
things,
it's like
yes.
Within the construct of a film, a 2-hour film, why the directors seem to get more credit than the writers or even the producers or anybody on the rest of the whole team, because it is a team effort. You know, making the Death Superman Lives, what happened was like almost 13-month every single day. Me, the editor, my gal, the producer, Holly Payne, and myself sitting in that room, all of us throwing ideas, cutting, editing, doing this. So it was definitely a super collaborative thing. But like ultimately, like, you know, here was my outline. It changed, it morphed from what I had written, what it was going to be. It turned into this other thing. Still had the beginning, still had the middle, still had the end. But it was like it's a thing, especially with a documentary. It changes and morphs. When you have an actual script, the writers for television, which is also a giant group thing. You might see one person's name on written by, but it's like a whole bunch of people all chimed in on that one script, and they just give each other credit. Like, you get to have credit for this one and kind of oversee it, but we'll all fix it and address it so it plays in with the story arc. So that's why you have showrunners and, you know, the main head writers. That's what they're making sure that it has a through line. So that's why the writers dominate television, because I think it's like, it's a little back and forth. Like, writers don't get enough credit in film, and directors don't get enough credit in television.
Yeah, good
so
point.
it's like, you know, I know for myself as a director of television, you know, I sculpted and edited and composited and made like some of the best episodes of Metalocalypse, but it's like usually the writers get the credit for that, whereas I saw it from beginning to end all the way through. My name's still there, but it's like, it's one of those things, like, television is a totally different beast than a movie. But I agree, is that both of them have that back and forth kind of thing. That example is like people who are directors of movies and the movie fails, they'll never get a job again. So it's like, oh, they ruined it. You know, so the directors, if they take all the credit for a successful film, but they get all of the blame for a film that goes bad.
Well, that's where I was going to go with it as well too, because the director is the captain of the ship.
Yeah.
So with all the moving parts, the writers being part of the moving parts as well too. But Schnepp's example, I mean, look at Josh Trank. What happened with Fantastic Four? That script wasn't great.
No.
You know, and you know, he was partially writing it as well too. But I think that the other thing that people need to realize I mean, Aaron Sorkin's an anomaly too. It's very rare that you have a person who writes the first draft of the script and then is the final writer by the end. Right. Working in the studio system for like 3 to 4 years, one of my jobs in development was you get the first draft of a script that maybe it's written on spec, or someone submits it and it's like, okay, this is an idea that we're going to buy, or it might be an idea that let's say Escape from New York, that the studio has the rights, and then they want to bring in some famous writers or some writers that are popular right now or that are good writers. There's a hot list. There's a list of all the popular writers. So let's say we want to have a particular team that's come in and pitch. We have the rights to Escape from New York. What's your take? And they'll listen to 3 or 4 different writers. They'll write the first draft, and then maybe they hire on for 2, 3 different drafts. They either like the drafts or don't like the drafts, and they go in different directions. There's people that are hired for rewrites. Right. A script, especially big budget, can go through many different writers. Now, I all think they should get more credit for sure, but it's not always just like you see the names on the credits as a written by. It's not always the case that they're just written by that 1 or 2 people.